Check, 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 1, 2. All right, all right, all right. We're about to get started. Hello, everybody. Oh, I gotta fix the camera. Look at how bad that angle is. You can tell I didn't check that before the show this time. How is everybody out there? I think we only have a couple people watching at the moment. But after a couple months off, we're getting back into it, okay? I do apologize that this is so sporadic, because I know there's a couple people that like to watch, and a couple people more that like to watch but really can't because our schedule's so unpredictable. So yeah, I'm gonna try to get much better at this. It's just we've had a lot going on. Nat and I work full time. Okay, we don't make money at this. So I mean, I'd like to make money at this. I won't lie. I wouldn't mind that. That would be nice. But I'm not gonna, sell my soul or whatever to make it happen. If it happens because we're enjoying doing what we do and all that, then great. Then that is what it is. But so that said, I do fundraising campaigns every now and then. It's more focused on my music, but if you would like to contribute, I will be doing another one of those soon. And with that said, welcome to the Rough Report. I am Jimmy Ruffian. Nat is not with me at the moment. She may get with me a little bit later in the show if she feels like she wants to add her 2 cents there. Just again, we have a lot going on. We're busy people, so yeah, we tend to get backed up on things. I have a lot on my plate going on right now, and I mean that in all the good ways. I like being busy. Lots of stuff coming up on the horizon, music wise, and I've been just working hard at that mostly. So yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk about on tonight's show, the main topic I do want to talk about, and I didn't rehearse this tremendously. We were getting better at that in previous episodes in terms of like prepping the show and really having much more of a rehearsed foundation for what we were going to talk about. I did not do that so much this time. I worked till 8 o'clock tonight. But yeah, I mostly wanted to unpack a few things about housing that I think is important to highlight in terms of, what I like to focus on in the show in general. And that's kind of talking about these sort of political topics that people have a hard time discussing, it feels like. And it's because I believe the nature of the discourse is often misleading and confusing, and what I mostly hope to achieve through these things is to make it understandable and to have people understand it in a way that I believe is most productive for all of us, and I do that from obviously my very leftist perspective, but in the nature of that and focusing on that, I wanted to talk about housing. And looks like Nat is down here. Oh yeah, where is the other chair? I think it's over there. Sorry, I completely forgot about that. I have your microphone set up in your headphones and everything. That's all ready to go. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, what was I saying there? Check, 1, 2. having weird audio issues. Bear with me. I think it's just my, I don't know. I think the headphone connection here. Are you all right? Are you tripping? You tripping, boo? How sad did I sound when I said that? All right. all right. I have to help Nat. She is trapped or something. Oh, okay.
I'm trying to move this around. I'm trying to get around the thing, and I'm just like, I'm trapped.
Okay, let me get my mic set of the way here. All part of the show, kids. All right. And so, as I was saying, I wanted to discuss housing, but the first thing I wanted to discuss, and I think you sent me a link about this, so allow me to cue that up.
And also the production value you get what you pay for. So
We were saying, like I was saying at the beginning, that I feel bad that we haven't like stuck to a schedule or anything. It's been like almost 2 months since we've done an episode, and I was like, also, we don't get paid to do this, so it's hard sometimes.
Well, and also I'm working 2 jobs now. And
yeah, she's working 2 jobs on top of that. Yeah, her full time and then a part time, and then of course, you know, I do my full time daytime thing, and then all the music stuff. So, yeah, we're busy people.
Existence is exhausting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to talk about housing, but I also want to talk about Senator Feinstein. Feinstein. Honestly, I've heard it both ways so many times. I don't know.
Yeah, so I say Feinstein. Whether
Okay.
I'm right or not.
It seems right.
It sounds right.
Feinstein sounds just wrong. That sounds really wrong. Can't do that.
It sounds like something that you call someone on the playground. Like my sister
Hey,
would call
Feinstein.
Yeah, like my sister
like
would call
something
me
like that.
Natalie. She'd call me Paddle Pea. So Feinstein sounds like that.
Be like, I feel like it would be more like something like more like Fartstein or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be the move.
Well, it would lead into that.
Okay, where?
So that
Okay, that's not related.
Yeah.
All right.
go back up. It might also be.
Yeah. You totally didn't send me this link. Okay. Anyway, basically, like I don't know, like I feel like it's like old news by this point because this is it's been going on for like what, a week now.
No, it's been going on for months. It's just,
Months, yeah, I
she's
guess,
only
like,
just been back
but
in
I
the
mean,
public eye,
since she's
really.
been back, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. So since she's been back, and we have seen the decrepit state that this woman is in, and that's no insult to her. She's fucking old, man. Like, what do you want?
The thing is that, like, you know, we came up with a retirement age because
I'll
we
insult her
decided-
for a lot of other reasons, though. Just to be clear,
Sorry?
I'll insult her for a lot of other reasons,
sure,
though. Just,
yeah.
But not because she's like old.
Yeah, not the ageism. It's
Yeah.
just, you know, altruistically, we decided at some point that people should be allowed to not work until they keel over and die.
Right?
But then you've got all these politicians who are doing that anyways. And
Sorry.
yeah, and not only does that rob opportunities from younger folks, and not even younger as in like, oh, I'm 20-something, I want to get into politics. I mean, yeah, that to some level keeps them out,
Wait.
but also, you know, even people who are in their like 50s and 60s, they can't break into politics because we got these 80, 90-year-olds like.
She kind of looks like Rudy Giuliani in this picture. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see what he was going for. Yeah. But yeah, like honestly, you know, aging is a thing. We know it's a thing, and we know that, you know, as you. Oh yeah, you should pull up that one right there.
This one? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like
I feel like you know this story better than I do. So
you reach a certain point where you're not gonna bounce back, right? And that is not being ageist. That is being realistic to the direction that time rolls in.
yeah.
and the
our
inexorable
mortal bodies that expire
march
after
towards
about
death.
80 or so
Yeah.
years. No matter what choices we make or how well we make them,
Mhm.
we make our exit at some point in this age range that Feinstein is in.
I mean, she's fortunate to have reached the age that she's at. How old is she? 89? Am I making that up?
She's up there, yeah, yeah. She might be in her 90s. Here, actually, okay.
Yeah,
Let me go back for a second.
Yeah,
here.
we have the
Oh,
power
God,
of the internet.
AP.
Let's ask. She's 89. It just
Okay,
said
yeah,
in the
she's
event.
89.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, for the love of Christ, man, she's 89. Retire. And that's
Yeah.
and
It's like enjoy what you got left, man.
Yeah.
Like what is
Like-
wrong with you?
and this is honestly just indicative of politics as a whole. Like we saw that, RGB, Ruth Bader-
Ruth Bader Green-
RBG.
RBG.
Sorry,
Red, blue, green.
Yeah. Not red, blue, green. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we saw what happened with her when she tried to holding on, but it wasn't the right move when we know that now. And Diane, like, honestly, just don't. Like, it puts us into a bad spot.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
bad
if
for
you-
everybody. Like there's no good outcome
no
from
one's
this.
benefit. Well, bad people benefit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
But-
it's well, like even from like if I were to take the Republicans' perspective on this, it's bad, I guess, because they're still getting like the Feinstein votes in there. I don't know.
Well,
It
she-
doesn't make sense. Never mind.
I mean, we
Yeah,
weren't
what I
getting
said.
the votes in there because she wasn't able to.
Yeah, she wasn't
show
able to
up.
do it for the longest time, and who knows when she might just like disappear again
Yeah.
permanently, perhaps.
Yeah,
Right?
like she's
Yeah.
not doing well.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is not, a spry young chick who, just overdid a weekend at an ultra marathon. Like
Can I just like point out, and I feel like this is like a big public perception thing, but like I can't help but to feel like everybody would feel really differently if she didn't dye her hair. You know what I mean? Like if she looked, like your grandma kind of thing, would people feel differently about it? Would people suddenly
Like-
have a moment of reflection if they, like, I don't know how they're not having a moment of reflection looking at this lady. Like, I mean, that they're like, okay, what are we putting her through, and the advantage that she's being taken of, like, with her staffers and the people working around her and stuff, it basically making all her decisions for her at this point.
Yeah,
you know.
honestly, like if I saw any of like my great aunts or anything being wheeled around like this and forced to go to work, and I would be horrified and violent. Like
Yeah.
I'd be like, leave Nana alone.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
Holy shit, that is just weekend at Bernie's shit. Like that is just not cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, and now I feel like it's like, okay, rock in a hard place. Like, as this article is pointing out, who would replace her, and how would you go about doing it at this point?
Fun fact, she's not suddenly 89. Maybe you should start fucking thinking ahead.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, I was thinking about this before the show, in terms of like how you just prevent this sort of thing from happening, right? In some way that, people don't feel like it's ageist or something like that, right?
Well, like even if you allow politicians to run for as long as their desiccated husk can show up in the House of Commons, like even if you allow for that, there's no succession planning. Like, what do you mean? Who would replace Feinstein? You don't have a backup in case she just like keels over and
Yeah, what do you
becomes
do in the event that other representatives might suddenly drop off? Like, what happens?
Admittedly, there's no succession planning for literally every person that they have out there.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I feel like
like-
that should be something that's on the books, right?
I mean, it beggars belief that not just under an ordinary situation for a politician who is
She turns 90 next month, to be precise. Yeah.
like, guys, just to not have a succession plan ready at the go at a moment's notice, especially for someone who's medically frail, is the height of irresponsibility.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, there. I feel it in Canada as well, but in the United States, and you know, Canada's never too far from these things. Um, there is something particularly like over the past few years, I feel like, um, where you're seeing like, not to get like too hippy dippy or spiritual or whatever, but like real rot in the soul of society.
Yeah.
I like, I don't know how else to really put it, where you know you got people like what is his name, Jordan Neely in the subway,
Mm.
you know, who got strangled to death. You know, you got people, you know, cheering that on, and you know, that's nothing new. Like you see how a lot of racist people and pro cop people and tough on crime people reacted to George Floyd's death.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Michael Brown.
like all of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, Neely is just part of a long list. What's unique about Neely is that this was like this act of vigilantism where he was really doing nothing wrong. He was just, you know, being a mumbling sort of homeless person. That isn't a crime. That is mildly irritating at the most, right? Let alone a death sentence. And so, you know, it just, and then like stuff like this, where you know, in government, where you know, just the willful incompetence and the greed and just like flying by the seat of their pants, the sheer carelessness. It's just, where does it end? Where does the rot end?
I mean, not of its own accord.
Yeah.
Certainly not of its own accord.
Yeah.
So yeah, like what the fuck are we actually going to do about it? Because honestly, they are counting on us just pissing the wind and whining and then acting.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and having no action behind it.
I
Because
mean,
we've been coddled into thinking that everything's fine and we don't need to
Yeah.
actually act on anything.
and these things have like escalated, obviously, because I think there's like a lot of propaganda going around. You know, there's people feeding this fervor sort of on purpose because they want you know, to be some sort of accelerationist in stoking political tensions for whatever reasons. And I think there's a lot of forces that do that on purpose, and I try and be conscientious of that, where it's just like, okay, you know, this person I'm talking to is just being antagonizing on purpose, or they've been antagonized, and the misinformation is something that they've now come to like actually absorb, and you know, that sort of thing, and trying to have grace and a certain amount of forgiveness for people. I think that's like an important thing to remember, but also at the same time, you know, you have to know where to draw the line, and say that I'm done forgiving. I'm done talking about this. It's too big a problem to continue trying to debate about it. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, you know, the social contract is broken.
Yeah.
Previously, it was like, okay, so if you just, you know, do your work, go home and shut up, then you can have like a stable and, dare I say, fulfilling life. Whereas now, it's all stick and no carrot. And so,
Yeah.
like, how are you placating people when folks can't even afford groceries, right? When having like 3 meals a day starts becoming a luxury.
Yeah.
Like, you are removing
I
the
did-
literal carrot.
I did that a lot when I lived in Toronto, and I was first like getting out there. There were periods where I worked 2-3 jobs, ate one meal a day. You know, it was hard for a while there, and there's people. I was lucky enough to get out of that. Right? There's people that aren't. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It is getting harder by the day to get out of it.
Yeah.
Like, of all the reckless economic positions I've put myself in over the past 15, 20 years, I can say with confidence that by the year, by the day, it's getting harder to recover from any of that. Like, for example, just on a whim deciding to move to St. John's, Newfoundland for a year, I was able to do that. Partly because rent was like $300 a month for a room.
Yeah.
And because we were able to,
And then, like, how long ago were you getting $300 a month for a room?
that was 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's not
I
that
was
long
still,
ago.
I was still
When-
able to do that. Last time I had to rent a room from somebody was when I was on a brief contract in end of 2015. I was renting a bedroom in a woman's house in Toronto. And so in end of 2015, I was paying about $300 a month for a room. But now, no, there's no way. Like the first apartment that my ex and I got in Toronto was a 2-bedroom basement apartment at Shaw and Bloor, and it was $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And that was 2009.
That was 2009.
Yeah.
So just to like put it in perspective here, I just was pulling this up on the Canadian inflation calculator. And yeah, like $100 in 2010 is $134.83 today. So inflation has gone up by that much. So if you were to account that into the price of housing and how much it's expanded, it's a lot more than that.
Oh, it's
Hell of a lot more
Oh,
than
yeah.
that.
Like a 2-bedroom basement apartment at Shaw and Bloor. Like
Yeah.
honestly,
Inflation is not the reason for
it'd be
the
at least
cost of
$2,000.
the increased cost of housing. It's just
No.
not.
No,
That's
absolutely not. No.
not what this is.
No.
And you know, in thinking of how times are hard, and things like that, and you know, getting into talking about housing. This article I found, it was a gut punch in a number of ways. To read that 1/3 of Canadians are fine with prescribing assisted suicide for homelessness. That 1/3 of this country's is become so inhumane that they would see this as a viable solution. I don't know what to say.
No.
Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey,
The emo dragon.
But yeah, no, honestly, it's sick, especially since we know that funding people to have housing and healthcare saves money. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even debate. We know, like, anytime that you start these,
If you want to talk about
tests-
fiscal responsibility, conservatives,
Yeah.
you know. Oh, look at you being all professional, turning your mic off to open your soda.
I just didn't want to in the mic. Jeez.
Yeah, it is really sad. It's
horrifying.
yeah. I can't like it just that like you know. I know I'm getting all kind of like poetic and big picture here, but like, is that where we're at? Really? Like,
I mean, honestly, in the past 3 years, I'm not fucking surprised. Look how little of that societally we've come together. Like, it was so easy to fracture people.
yeah. In like, you know, the COVID pandemic to me like was such an opportunity for working class people to like you really unify and put their foot down about stuff and saying we're not doing this. We're not playing along with having to continue to go to work and commute and stuff ourselves onto subway trains during this you know, pandemic.
We could have had a rent strike. We could have had a general strike. We could have,
Yeah, we could have had him by the balls, y'all.
We could have ground the machine to a halt.
Yeah.
I'm still hopeful that we fucking might.
Yeah,
but Jesus Christ!
But
we
like
can't,
it feels like we're sort of more fractured than ever, and I don't know how real that is because like when I say feels like, I'm looking at things like, you know, how people talk online or reading articles like this, right?
Yeah.
You know. That's my frame of reference for this sort of thing. You know, when you talk to people in real life, you know, in our so-called polite society, We don't tend to say out loud that homeless people it would be all right if they died. You know, we tend to not vocalize that to our coworkers.
Yeah. Or at least you and I don't tend to, personally associate with anyone who.
Yeah,
lets their
I'd
guard
like to
down and
think.
says
I'd
that
like to
outside.
think.
Fuck.
But like for all these people like online that you run into that are twisted on Twitter and stuff like that. Yeah, sure. A lot of them are just like bot farm, propagandized, like just paid propaganda and psyop and however else you want to put it. A lot of that kind of bullshit. But you got to understand. There's a certain percentage of these people that are you or me at the other side of it,
And here's the thing. So relating to housing costs and stuff, I know that, there's some snobby folks who like to say something like, well, if you can't afford to live downtown Toronto, just move to a small town. Then you'll be fine. Like, why do you need to live in a big city? Ignoring the fact that it's still expensive living.
We moved to
in
this
small
crummy
towns.
suburb, and it's still expensive as shit. Like
I mean, it's not as expensive downtown.
not
but,
as
like,
expensive
there's
as
still,
downtown. Yeah,
Like, we're still not saving
suburbs
a down payment
suck,
for a
y'all.
fucking
Like,
house.
who thought this shit was a good idea?
Like,
Suburbs are dumb.
Like, I'm happy that I have access to a yard.
Yeah, having a backyard is nice. Having that little plot of space is nice.
And-
Front yard can fuck off. I hate that.
Yeah. Decompressing from living in downtown Toronto during the pandemic, that has been, helpful for me.
Yeah.
But like a lot of what you're saying, it's stupid. Anyway,
Yeah.
that wasn't the point I was making. The point I was
I
making-
know. Sorry, I'm being distracted.
It's okay. So the point I was making is that, folks will be like, well, just move to a small town. I mean, even though public transit is getting worse where it's available, at least it's available. Moving to a small town, it is not available. You need a car. Already that's an extra expense. And then on top of that, gas. Where do you live? And then on top of that, you're probably not going to be in an apartment building. So now you need to worry about other things like water, hydro, heat.
Yeah.
Like the bills.
Just
start
like
stacking up.
sure, like as we were saying when we first moved here, it's like we have a whole house for the same rental cost as our 2-bedroom apartment in Toronto, but yeah, when there's all these other added expenses on top of that,
It's true. And that part sucks. But
Yeah.
anyway, but also on top of all of that, on top of the fact that getting your belongings from one place to another is fucking expensive. On top of all that, what you were saying about like these, fashy schmucks don't just exist online. They live in higher density, in my experience, in small towns. And so let's say that you're not heteronormative. Let's say that you're, queerdos moving into a small town.
Small towns don't work out for people like us too well, generally speaking.
I've experienced them and been driven out of them. Like it's, I can speak from experience saying that sometimes the juice ain't worth the squeeze, and sometimes you're wondering if you're going to survive the squeeze. So it's, there are no simplistic solutions. Like, I would love to say that I'm just going to, save a little bit of money and then buy a 1-bedroom cottage in the middle of nowhere. But honestly, how are my queers going to find me?
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, to my our American viewers, the stuff that you're seeing in regards to poverty and homelessness and the squeeze, we're not much better. Like, yeah, sure, we got our health care, but right now we also have like Doug Ford, conservative premier of Ontario, who's gutting the healthcare system.
I haven't had a family doctor in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I don't know when I'll get one again.
Yeah.
And I hope that I don't need one.
Like every, back in when Obamacare in the States was being debated, and like every Canadian witnessing this was just screaming, "Look what we have! It's great!" And this is even after all, the Conservatives made a bunch of cuts in their tenure, and then the Liberals got elected again and virtually did nothing to patch up those holes. and then the Conservatives got elected again, and they're now gutting it again.
Except they're going even further to like
Yeah.
actually officially privatize.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this
Now you they have like voucher programs and stuff like that. So you're going to a private clinic, but the government's going to subsidize it. This is creeping towards the American style.
It's not even just creeping. Like
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's at our doorstep.
Yeah.
And this combined with this housing crisis. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you gotta be careful of that. This combined with the housing crisis, it's absolutely insane. I don't know this. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable.
Nothing is sustainable.
You combine this with the mental health crisis, you're basically creating the conditions of a violent uprising, because people are going to, you can only push them too far. They're going to start to lose their shit. Like literally, like this isn't even like, I'm not even talking politically, just on their day to day, their suffering is so grand that they're just shutting down,
And that's not saying that, people are going to be upset and, have themselves like a little, holler. I mean, like literally get to the end of the rope. So Emo Dragon. So can the premier get it province by province, then by
basically, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's sort of like federally mandated that we have some sort of public health care insurance. Like it's universal insurance is the core of it. And
in Ontario, it's called OHIP.
The Ontario Health Insurance Program. And so we have OHIP in Ontario. So it's up to the provinces how it's really structured. So basically they've just been like gutting that, and we're get blood tests now and things like that. You straight up have to pay for it, which was not a thing a few years ago. So was Rob Ford worse than Doug Ford? Rob Ford could not be worse than Doug Ford because he was only mayor of Toronto.
Yeah.
He was an awful human being. Like as a human being, I would bet Rob is worse than Doug. Just like on a personal day-to-day level, I don't know. It's hard to say because Rob was just sort of like the really unhinged drug addict type. Doug is he's the gangster, so it's
like seriously, it's this whole thing, and it's ridiculous, and it's embarrassing.
And the fact that Doug even got elected, like after all that Rob Ford stuff, right?
Because at the same
his
time,
brother, like he somehow gets in to be the nominee. Like the fact that he was even the nominee seemed crazy.
Doug Ford was in Toronto City Council while Rob Ford was mayor.
Yeah.
And so it's not that we're unfamiliar with his politics. We've seen it in Toronto.
Doug was a wiener that got made fun of lots on Toronto City Council.
When he
like
actually
nobody liked him. Nobody liked him.
Yeah, when he actually showed up.
And I think that's part of his politics is that he has an axe to grind against those councillors in Toronto and is trying his best to fuck with them.
His first action having the ridings in Toronto during a fucking election.
Yeah.
Like, are you shitting me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has an axe to grind.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Yeah, that was a snaky move. Like the stuff that this guy has managed to pull off in his tenure is nuts. I think you can almost say he's sort of analogous to Trump in a way, except Doug Ford is not a good like showman at all. Just politically, he's very Trumpian. But so he doesn't have like that bombastic, like, the media wants to look at him because he's just so crazy. Like he doesn't have that thing going for him. But he's such a schmuck. And the stuff he's managed to get away with politically, I think it rivals what Trump got away with. It really takes, like, if you were to put like them on a scoreboard, like what he managed to sneak in, like the gangster shit that they managed to get away with thus far, if you were to really tally it up, I think Doug Ford's got him beat.
I mean, like, it's hard to say because of the scale, right? But it gives you an idea that if Dougie had access to that kind of like political power and clout,
Yeah.
he would absolutely be running for that belt.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's like, so this guy, it's like, it's and what is frustrating about Canadiana compared to like American media is, it's like, in America these things are really like played into, like you got CNN and you got MSNBC really like focusing on these guys, and really, like, making a show out of Trump, making a show out of Biden, and there's this kind of like sensational entertainment aspect to it. Canada doesn't do that, to like an almost like hilariously offensive degree. You know what I mean? It's like it's like they go out of their way to make it as bland and disassociative as possible, where it's almost like trying to engage with political media in Canada. It feels like trying to engage with like white noise, like it's just you know what I'm saying, like it's like they actively don't want you to be paying attention, right?
You have friends in Barrie and they're not fans of Doug either.
Yeah,
Why would they be?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Really, what has he done for anyone but his rich friends?
Yeah, like
honestly,
even historically speaking, like I would have always said that American right wingers are way to the right of Canadian right wingers. Like historically that would have been true. Like even winding back 10 years, I think most people.
No, because Harper was.
Yeah, Harper was in, but still.
No, honey.
I don't know.
I was in the thick of it. Maybe like Harper is the one who like set the trail right now for what is happening with Doug and with.
Yeah, I think he set the tone for it. Absolutely. Yeah.
And just doing things like getting rid of the gun registry and like destroying the records and destroying a bunch of scientific records as well. Like, honestly, this guy, fucking, if he were any bit charismatic, he would have been far more successful at his fascism. But it's because he has the personality of a wet rag, and everyone could recognize what a soulless creep he was, that he wasn't charismatic.
It's pretty much why like Trudeau works, is that he's like his politics in particular aren't great, but he people like looking at him and listening to him. And generally speaking.
And so, you know what I wish? I wish, and I'm not even sure when this was a thing. I hear tell legends of a time in politics when your options for who you're going to vote for is kind of like, if my guy doesn't win, the other guy isn't great, but it's not the end of the world. Now it feels like the end of the world. And that's not even it's not even really hyperbole by this point, and it is really fucking
like, come on, this is like, if it's not like desperate now, like I've had this image up for a while now, I really hope it sinks in with people that we're talking about 33% of us, according to this poll, are like, homeless people, if they just want to like walk into the wood chipper, that's not the worst solution. Maybe that's what I get from this, right? And to think that that's where we're at, that's like what the point that people have been driven to, where it's just like I don't know, like what do you like the average working person when it comes to things like this, like where we're getting down to like, people are dying from a problem that is fixable. It's expensive. It will take effort, but it is perfectly doable. There's all the reasons in the world to say that this is going to be hard, whatever, but it's doable. And since when have we been like this, where we're like, what's doable is just intimidating, and we have this sort of like, I don't know, survival instinct over what's ours and what we can grasp onto, and allow ourselves to be hostile to each other by it. It's a false scarcity. Like, what's scarce? Money, the made up part.
Yeah, and the thing is that like, it's all bad and terrible, and we could, if we put in some effort, and if we didn't have this little bug in our ear saying that like, oh, government should be run like a business, and so anything that loses money needs to be cut. If we didn't treat human beings as liabilities, and we understood that we need to invest.
That's why we have this government. Like
that's why we have any government.
Yeah,
like what the fuck is government?
That's literally the purpose, right? Like that's why we have these mechanisms, right? Mm-hmm. And as I was saying like earlier, and I was gotten a bit of the disagreement with a friend on Instagram yesterday. She didn't seem to like it, but she was sort of like saying that like civilization was built on psychopaths and greed, and these industrials have formed society and civilization for better or worse. And I was just basically like, no, that's not true. That's just not true.
If that were true, then we'd still be in
society and civilization exist despite their efforts.
In spite of it.
Completely despite their efforts. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to try and do this more often, Emo Dragon. I promise.
Weekly ask.
Weekly ask. We usually do it on Sundays. So.
But it's a long weekend.
Yeah.
And
we were really tired. I slept a lot over the long. Well, I didn't have a long weekend. I work on the weekends, so I had the holiday Monday off.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just beat down by capitalism. So I'm just fucking exhausted all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, I what was I saying? Sorry, I got totally thrown off track there. But yeah, like I don't.
We aren't run by psychopaths.
Yeah.
I
like
mean,
we're run by psychopaths.
Yeah, we're being manipulated against each other by psychopaths.
Yeah, I think like when you look at history and stuff, it's just like psychopaths have been often in power. But they kind of have to deal with how the rest of us just kind of don't want to, work all the time and just sort of enjoy things.
Yeah.
So they've been sort of obligated to deal with it. That's us creating culture and civilization, and the things that make life worth living is the caveats that they're forced to make, right? And they are increasingly not being forced to make these caveats. Like I remember, having weekends off and, May Day and the labor movement and stuff like that. The deal was we got this stuff in lieu of burning their house down.
Yeah.
And
that's one of my points is that we've been propagandized for a generation into thinking that anything that was won with politeness, but that's literally never been the case. You could see it right now. Look how they're winning. When you go out into the street, like when you try and protest, when you get yourself on the line and you really start to push the envelope, what do they do? What do they do? And when you start to protest for leftist socialist things for the betterment, that's when you get hit in the face with a bobby stick. Whereas, if you're right wing, then the cops are
a little more forgiving.
They're out of uniform partying there with you because, you're their people.
Saw someone, like I got in a debate with a guy on Twitter, like not so much a debate, but like I guess a small back and forth where he was like complaining about like the Just Stop Oil protesters, and they tend to do really like theatrical things, like throwing soup on the Van Gogh, like that sort of thing. Didn't actually damage the Van Gogh. Like they put a bunch of like black dye in some fountain in Italy or something recently, blocking a road and stuff like that. I think that is all very legitimate form of protest and like calling attention and doing these theatrical things. Like this should always be on our mind. Everywhere I look, I would like to see people screaming about this. I think that's a good thing. And sure, you could say, oh, why aren't they, trying to go block the roads that executives are driving on? Like, why aren't we specifically trying to target these people and not everybody else? But the thing is, if you target a great enough audience, those people work for those companies.
Mm-hmm.
If those people can't get to work because you're blocking the roads,
and
that's a problem for them.
Yeah, and
right?
Also there's no singular path to freedom.
And yeah,
so if there's a way that you think that they should be protesting, please do that.
Yeah.
Please
if you're like, why aren't they doing that? You have the option to do that. You can do that. You can totally do that. No one's stopping you. No one's stopping you.
I'm not stopping you. Sorry, I'm just putting.
I know capitalism might be stopping you, like you have to work and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, then appreciate maybe like the efforts they're trying to make. Who knows what their lives look like outside of what they're doing there? Yeah.
And honestly, sorry, you can't caught me playing with your little.
Yeah. She has my banjo finger picks.
But no, seriously, like if there is something that you believe is going to be an effective way to force a conversation, change, etc., then my God, please do it.
And speaking of which, actually, we got like way diverted from the point there, but that's part of the fun of the show and why I don't like overproducing it, because we can sort of riff and ramble. But to sort of like bring it back to housing, one of the main points I wanted to make about that was, people talk about like, the solution that Doug Ford is having right now. And I know it's a popular solution when, you're talking about YIMBYism in the US and stuff like that. Like, yes, in my backyard, saying yes to more development in the building of more homes. Sure, that can be good in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of questions we should be asking ourselves about that. Like when you're talking about Ontario's Greenbelt, areas that Doug Ford, just a few years back was promising to conserve, right? Saying, the people have spoken. We're not going to touch the green belt. And now he is basically giving it to the highest bidder or the lowest bidder, whoever his friends are. Any bidder. The building of these homes on this land is a developer's wet dream, and it's only a gift to the developers when you don't have any mechanism in place to control the pricing of the houses. To control the market in some degree, because as we were pointing out earlier, that with the inflation calculator, how much inflation has gone up versus how much housing has gone up, it's obviously not freaking congruent, right? So this isn't just like, the market, right? It's a deliberate greed on the behalf of massive landowners.
Yes, and on top of that, we can't. There is nothing built in right now to ensure altruism and respect for the environment and respect for the greater
there's
good.
no regulation. He's gutted most of it. Like there was Harper, at what he could do on the federal level, he gutted a lot of environmental protections. Stephen Harper, pre-Justin Trudeau. But Doug Ford in Ontario has gone even further with what he's able to control. And, he's talking about how, I want to build this battery plant in Ontario now, electric cars, woo-hoo. But like he's gutted every environmental protection along the way.
He removed those a bunch of EV stations outside of Hamilton as soon as he got in.
Yeah.
He's not for electric cars. It's just at this particular point in time, it will
look good for his economic numbers if he gets a factory built. Is basically what
because
that
of
comes
the
down
convenience right now to him personally.
Yeah.
And honestly, like when people say daft shit like the market will regulate itself, it won't. It absolutely won't. If it did, we wouldn't have things like Love Canal.
Yeah. Like if the market regulated itself, the housing market wouldn't be what it is. This is the direct result of just laissez-faire, people taking what they can get and squeezing the stone. That's always been what this is.
And it's gotten worse. It has gotten infinitely worse.
So yeah, there was like Doug Ford promised again and again to protect the green belt, only to pull a bait and switch after he was elected. Surprise, surprise. Carving it up to make his rich friends richer. Make no mistake, Doug Ford is doubling down on his broken promise so he can continue to carve up and give away more of the green belt to his friends. And yes, Doug Ford is friends of developers. Absolutely bosom buddies.
And developers don't give a shit about if we're able to
afford these places or not,
not
because
just
people will
afford that.
buy them. Like you'll have an investor class buy them up and
Yeah.
just continue the same problem we have.
Yeah. But not just that. They're not concerned about if we're able to produce food.
Yeah.
Like, this is farmland
Yeah.
that they're paving over. You
Yeah.
can't reclaim that. You can't
Yeah.
tear down a house and be like, oh, good. we can
Ontario
put-
is quite large, all in all, but the actual farmland that like farmable irrigated land that we can grow stuff on is not that much. Yeah.
Like, it's a very specific geographic area where the soil is rich because of, I don't know, historical, geological stuff. I can't remember, and I'm not going to pretend I remember it right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a reason why it's called the Green Belt.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of, a couple of nice trees. It's because it is a rich, lush, productive farmland. And that's why it's being productive. And not just farmland, but like also like protective environmental areas.
Yeah.
And just like,
Let's look at this.
don't pave over where we're supposed to eat. you fucks.
Unequivocally, we won't touch the green belt. I've heard it loud and clear. People don't want me touching the green belt. We won't touch the green belt. I have committed not to be paving anywhere in the green belt. We committed to expanding the quality and quantity of the green belt in 2020 during the election. I said I wasn't going to touch the green belt. I have not touched the green belt. We won't touch the green belt. We won't build on the green belt.
Dougie, you're a cunt.
We have a housing crisis that the majority of our kids can't afford to buy a home. They can't afford to live in Toronto or the GTA because the previous government, of course, he's been in power how many years by 2022? Like 6 years at that point.
By that point,
But still, it's the previous.
by that
previous
point, he
government
was
who did
starting
it.
his second term.
Yeah. Because the previous government didn't have the backbone to make the changes. We're increasing the green belt
That
more
was
than
his
2,000 acres. The decision was very easy. We're in a housing crisis right now. One piece of field had housing all around all four corners and an empty field with weeds in it. They call that the green belt. That's not the green belt. That's just a field with a bunch of weeds. So now he's like trying to paint this land as just a field with a bunch of weeds. Like
Dougie,
it's a deliberate lie.
disingenuous cunt.
Some land shouldn't be in the green belt and some should be in the green belt, and we're expanding the areas that we feel should be in the green belt. The areas that you feel like this isn't like you don't feel like what irrigatable lush land is. Like that's not a feeling. That just is. That's a thing that you can observe. It was just a big scam as far as I'm concerned. I think we're doing pretty good on the so-called green belt.
No.
Just like how this is degraded over time and how let's be honest, the green belt was a failed policy, a flawed policy from the Liberal government. So he's completely 180'd to this, to any honest person. You should know.
No.
Yeah, that's pretty obvious. He was going to do that.
He's not an honest person. That sucks.
Yeah, like he's literally the most scumbaggiest dude. Like good Lord.
Yeah.
So, the building of more houses on this land is obviously bad for a number of reasons. But at its core, when we're talking about housing specifically, building more homes isn't gonna do it. Right? You have to have other policy that goes along with this that protects the consumer, that makes these homes affordable, and basically it takes the profit out of this. This something that people need to survive in this way. It is obviously not a sustainable system to try and profit from it this much. It's just not.
Yeah, and I know that we were all excited when we were watching, like, house flipping shows in the mid 2000s and stuff, and thinking like, yeah, maybe I can get some of that action. Well, a lot of people did, but then a lot of investors did. Now we're all fucked, and no one has a roof over their heads. So like,
yeah,
we had
you have people that own several homes, and it's not enough for them anymore that they're building equity and a cushy retirement. They want to profit off of it month after month, day after day, year after year, and any ostensible loss in that is they're not thinking about. It's like they're not thinking about the investment in the future, right? Oh, I'm building up the value of this property and gaining equity and gaining something to fall back on. It's like, no, this is my source of income.
Well, maybe get a fucking job.
Yeah, maybe get a fucking job. Yeah. That's what this like sort of investor class situation has become, especially when you're talking about the GTA, and even we're renting, like shit. Yeah.
How like, hey, why don't you save up for a down payment? Hey, I'm already paying over $25,000 a year in rent. Where the fuck am I gonna get my down payment from?
Yeah. So yeah, there we are, and that about rounds out the hour. And so like I said, we were riffing a lot in this one. We're gonna come back on Sunday with a much more structured show, get into the meat of things a little bit more. I was playing it fast and loose tonight. I don't know. That was just my vibe.
Yeah, I'm just fast and loose on my moo tonight.
Yes. And as always, let's all hail the leader of Antifa, this duck, and our non-copyright theme music. Thank you for watching The Rough Report. I'm Jimmy Ruffian. This is Nat Prince, signing off till Sunday. See you later, folks.